And one of the few governors that I would have to say governor had to run for re-election probably went with no problem. But at that time, he could not run for re-election in Mississippi. Governor throughout his entire life has wanted to leave Mississippi a better place. After leaving the governorship, Governor then moved into other endeavors. The one that is noted mostly is the Racial Reconciliation Institute at Ole Miss, Winter Institute, that has really become a national leader in talking about reconciliation among the races and the importance that that has throughout our society. Throughout his public service career, Governor has completely understood the importance of leveling the playing field and making opportunities available for every individual. A phrase that I have always kept in my mind and in my heart is, the road out of poverty goes by the schoolhouse door. If we think about that, that is so very true. Very rarely does an individual get to introduce a hero of his, but this morning I have the incredible opportunity to introduce to you Governor William Winter. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Wick. Thank you for doing me the favor of inviting me to meet with some of my favorite people, history teachers. I owe them so much. And be here with you and my longtime associate, the State Governor Hardy, and with Constance Hardy, who was a valuable mentor for me, going back a long way. I don't know how you fixed it so I would have to follow her again. That's a big ass follow. But I am delighted to join you here in discussing the role that you play in our society. One of the most important roles, I think, in the whole education system, of teaching young people about who they are and where they have come from and how much they have to preserve the culture that is a part of the past of all of us, some of it good and some of it bad, but from which we all emerge as more enlightened and informed people. So our first message is, thank you for what you are doing. There are not enough people, not enough young people, in my estimation, who have a respect for and interest in the study of history. But we as a people in this country cannot finally fully realize our destiny unless we know who we are and what are the values and what are the instincts that come out of a knowledge of our background. So let me just say a few words, and then I would like just to have a conversation. I know you don't want me to stand up here and make a long speech, but let me kind of open this discussion by telling you one or two things about my own life and why history has meant so much to me. I grew up in a rural area in North Mississippi. I grew up 10 miles out in the country from the lake. That was about as isolated an area as you could find. The REA hasn't even gotten out to our house. I never got to cut the lights on until after I graduated from college. but it was still a place where I learned so much from the people that I lived with, from my parents, from my grandfather. My grandfather was a veteran, a Confederate veteran of the Civil War. I used to sit on his knee as a small boy and listen to him talk about his experiences as a Confederate, as a 16-year-old Confederate soldier. I grew up thinking that the Confederacy was the greatest institution that was ever established. That was the atmosphere in which I grew up. That was the atmosphere that was the background of Southern society at that time. And so, when I went to Ole Miss in 1940, a long time ago, when I went to Ole Miss in 1940, my whole understanding of where I come from was colored by those associations that I had with my Confederate grandfather and with my father, who was born during Reconstruction. It was not exactly an unbiased story about Mississippi in the late 19th century and in the early 20th century. So as I say, I went to Ole Miss, pretty much a product of the old South. I didn't know that there was anything else other than racial segregation, other than the fact that on our farm, as a boy, I had the closest of relationships with the black children who lived on the farm, and we were true friends. We were friends within that framework, within that segregated framework. We played together, worked together, swam together, didn't go to school together. One of my earliest memories is getting on a school bus, going into the school at the county seat of Grenada, excellent 12th grade school, passing my black playmates who were trudging along a mile and a half, 2 miles to a little 6th grade school. I had the benefit of this very good high school. They paid the penalty of being black by having to go to 6th grade school. I think maybe that was the first time that I really recognized that maybe there was something wrong with the system. Here my friends with whom I played all summer were trudging along in the rain and mud, walking to this little 6th grade school, and I was on this new bus being carried into Grenada to a good school. That did not bother me so much because I accepted it as a kid, as a part of the system. Then I went to Ole Miss, and that is where I came under the influence of a great teacher. He had more influence on me than any other teacher I ever had. He was a history teacher at the University of Mississippi. His name was Jim Silver, Dr. James W. Silver. And when I entered his class on American history, I began to see things in a broader and more intelligent way. He was a North Carolinian. He was a graduate of the University of North Carolina. His doctorate was from Vanderbilt. He was no outsider. He was a Southerner. But he also understood that there was a larger part of the history that folks like me need to understand. And so in that class, he would challenge us in terms of how we could justify living in in a segregated society. Now that was a new experience for me. I just assumed that everybody felt the same way. If white folks were supposed to be up here and black folks were supposed to be down there, everybody was happy. I mean, that was the picture that I had grown up with. Jim Silver, in the course of that 1 year, and I'm making it history, taught me so much. Not only about my state and my country and race relations, but about me. I didn't realize how biased and prejudiced I was. I didn't realize how ignorant I really was about the real world. So he opened up a whole new horizon for me, and I should always be indebted to him. Now, as you would imagine, teaching at Ole Miss in the 1940s, and teaching things like challenging the system of segregation was not the best way to preserve one's tenure in the state university. And so they really stayed on him. And when I went to the legislature in 1948, having graduated from undergraduate from Ole Miss, and then I was late in the legislature when I was still in law school. Incidentally, there were 12 of us who were students in the law school in 1947. We ran to the legislature and 11 of us were elected. There were 11 students, enrolled students, who were members of the legislature. And it was at that time that the heat began to be turned up in terms of the issue of segregation. Most of us had fought in World War II to come back, along with a lot of black veterans who were in World War II. And incidentally, the military was as segregated as Mississippi. I went to a white unit, black convict went to a black unit. Again, in that process, I learned a lot. As a white officer, I was assigned to a black unit. All the officers were white, all the enlisted men were black. Over Fort McClellan, Alabama. And then the Army engaged in a very daring experiment. They integrated the officer code in that particular unit. And I found myself serving, working, playing, eating, sleeping, doing everything with all these black officers from all over the country. And that wasn't a problem for me. I thought, listen, what are we making all this deal about segregation? We get along fine. And yet when we go off the post, this is when it really came on. When we go off the post before the plow over Alabama, everything was, we lived in a newly integrated atmosphere. But my black officer friend and I would get on the bus. It's a busy bus, going to house. My friend would have to go to the back of the bus. And of course, we couldn't eat a hamburger together, we couldn't go to the movies together, couldn't even go to church together. And again, I said, what's wrong with this picture? I knew it was going to change. I knew after the war that we would not have unquestioned, unchatting system of segregation in the South. But I didn't know how that process would work or how long it would take. But I knew it was going to happen. And so, when I came back from the Philippines in 1946, a lot of us who had been veterans, as I say, went to legislate. Jim Silver was back. Jim had come back to the campus in World War II. And I kept in close touch with him. I was in law school, so I didn't take no classes. But he and I worked together on a speaker program, OEK Forum, OEK Leadership Fraternity, speaker forum. I was the student chairman and he was the faculty supervisor. And we would bring these speakers on the campus. And that's when I first ran into the kind of censorship that was beginning. One of the first speakers that we invited was the editor of the Greenville newspaper, the Delta Democrat.